Ladies and gentlemen, just before we get into this episode of the Fitzness Podcast, just a quick reminder that we are also on Spotify and Anchor. So if you want to listen to this episode uninterrupted while you're in a car journey or you're trying to do something around the house, then please do head over to both of those pages and check us out there. On with the episode.
Have that self-belief, that confidence. I think it's really important that you know who you are. You stay true to yourself as a person. And, you know, I've had people tell me in the past, you're not good enough. A lot of people don't believe in me or didn't believe in me. Maybe now do, maybe still don't. And in my mind, I don't care. And I think everyone should have that sort of mentality in life where you sort of park what people think and sort of start having that self-affirmation and that self-belief in yourself to, you know, that positive chat just to say, look, you can do whatever you want in the world, really, you can. And it's about you having that belief to do it. And I seriously believe that if you have that confidence in yourself, you can do anything.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Fitzness Podcast, not the Fitzness Academy podcast anymore, actually. So because you might have actually seen this man before, because I will hold my hands up straight away and apologize, because this is actually our second time recording it. Cal's still at the beginning of his career, and we've already recorded 2 episodes. That's how good he is. So we'll have him on about 15 times by the time he's retired. But no, Cal, mate, thank you very much for coming on again.
No, thanks for having me. It's good to try it again.
I had to get that one out straight away because I'm honest and I'm open about it. So just make sure. So starting us off, ladies and gents, obviously Glamorgan cricketer, and very proficient within the first team setup. But we'll let Cal stay on with his story a bit later on. But to start us off, I'm not actually sure if we did this, actually. I think I might have implemented this afterwards. But the icebreaker, mate. So a different one, if we did do it. Mate, cricketers are weird, mate. I'm a cricketer myself, and I know, mate, I'm a bizarre creature, mate. I've got some awful superstitions, mate. Some weird ones. But mate, I've got some weird ones as well. So what about before you go out to bat? Obviously, Cal is a batsman. So, Cal, mate, any weird superstitions that you've got for us before you go out to bat or to field? Mate, I'm seeing some class sunnies, by the way. I've got some unbelievable Oakleys as well. Any weird ones, mate?
On the Oakleys, got some gold ones. They're chilling. Just trying to look flair to the audience. But I think, I don't know, I've never had some weird ones. I've got some weird ones outside of cricket where I don't walk under signs. I can't do it. Just no interest in it. Just when I'm walking and you got the signs apart, I just can't do it. I have to go the other side of it, walk on the road, or if I have to. But in cricket, not really. I just have my routine where I run out and bat. I always go right foot first. Have to look at the sun. A few side steps, a few skips. But before I bat, nothing really. To be honest, not yet. Anyway, in my career, still in the early days, but. Yeah, other than that, nothing really. Right foot first onto the field. That's the only sort of one I've had so far. Nothing too ridiculous like that I've heard. There's a few people that around the circuit that you hear of.
I've heard some rash ones, mate. I've heard like people taping certain bits of their fingers because it, I don't know, reminds them about certain positions of that. Mate Marnus, obviously, who you played with quite a bit recently in the past couple of years when he's been at Glamorgan as well. Mate, he's probably got more superstitions than anyone in the book. But, mate, to be fair, mate, that's brilliant. I'm loving the fact that you went outside of cricket as well, because I've never heard of that one before, and that was unbelievable. So, obviously, that icebreaker's done. On to the serious, semi-serious stuff. Cal, obviously, I've been honoured to hear your journey once already, but for the second time, and for all of our listeners, mate, can you tell us the journey of Callum Taylor? Because obviously, Cal has not been watching too much of the test on Amazon Prime. He is actually, obviously, from Australia with British passport, so plays for Glamorgan and for Wales as well sometimes, which is awesome. So, mate, Cal, take it away, mate. I'm not going to take away all your limelight.
Lovely. Yeah, it's an interesting story. I mean, I think a lot of people have heard it firsthand, but I think I started playing cricket quite young, playing at a school called the Southport School in Australia on the Gold Coast. I was lucky enough to grow up there on the Gold Coast and play my junior cricket there. And what a time it is, and what a great place the Gold Coast is. I love that. It's
Can't wait to go, mate. I honestly can't wait to go, mate. I'm going to go soon.
Yeah, you
can't
need
wait
to. I'd recommend everyone that's listening to get to the Gold Coast at some point. People do perceive it as a party city, but I disagree. I think it's building into, you know, one of the better places in Australia. And growing up there was, you know, honestly unbelievable. I'm very grateful for my parents to bring me over there, but at the same time, you know, cricket in general, it's a very big place for cricket, the Brisbane grade competition, and just Queensland cricket in general. They bring through talent after talent every year. So, you know, my journey started there, at the Southport School, playing cricket there. We have ranges of players that have played in the past. Obviously, most notably recently, you got Matt Kuhneman, played Test cricket. Blair Tickner played Test cricket for New Zealand. And then obviously other lads like Sam Hain, Billy Stanlake, Xavier Bartlett. So a lot of names recently have come through that. Obviously Michael
Big
Nessa.
dogs.
How can I forget Michael?
Of course, I was going to say plays with you there at Glam. Obviously, when he comes over, mate. I was going to say.
So then, if I move on, it started there at TSS, where I played then local cricket around the Gold Coast, which then got me into Gold Coast Dolphins over there, which is my now grade club still. Played Taverners there, under 16s, and then a lot of grade cricket there, and then on to under 17s Queensland and under 19s Queensland, where then I finished school and moved. Well, initially wanted to come over here for a gap year, just to see what it was like over here. Have a lot of family in Wales, but the goal wasn't to play initially for a Welsh team. It was, I had a deal lined up with Sutton Cricket Club, which eventually fell through due to, I think the captain retired, if I do recall. I think a senior player retired, and they wanted a more senior overseas player, and which is fair enough. And a 17-year-old me coming over to the UK was a bit in awe, like, where do I go? That was my sort of question. I'm like, what am I doing? So my dad got in contact with Mike and Dave Knight from Newport Cricket Club, who at the time, an up-and-coming cricket club. They'd played some good cricket in the past, but hadn't really done much. They had quite a young team. And so my dad said, look, great ground, Spitty Park, one of the better wickets. Heard some good things about Newport. They come third the year before and sort of scraped out third. They nearly came second. But then, they said they were happy to have me the night. So look, we're willing to have a look at you and whatnot. And I was like, brilliant. Lived in Newport for that season, and played really well, played some good cricket, got seen by some Glamorgan Academy coaches, and obviously the Welsh minor counties coaches. And then the following year, I played pretty much a whole year of minor counties, and the back end played a bit of second 11 cricket with Glam. And I would say the third year came back again, and pretty much I did really well and earned myself a contract, which I was stoked with, absolutely stoked. A little summer deal at the time, which they've obviously amended the contracts, etc., for different things for the PCA. But I was absolutely stoked with that. If I actually take it back a little bit through there, my first year playing over here, I went back to Australia after that, and I actually had a stiff time of it because the year before I was a year young for Queensland under-19s, and they didn't put me in the squad at all, which was quite demoralising. And even my club at the time, Gold Coast, they pegged me down a different grade as well. I was playing third grade for the first game of the season, and that didn't sit well with me. And I left to go to Souths just due to lack of opportunity. Yeah, so I moved to South Brisbane, which then I think my cricket skyrocketed because I played first grade pretty much the back end of the year there, and I just felt at home, and the confidence came, and I felt that my game went to another level. Sort of in the UK, I thought it did, and then just after, when I went to Souths, and everything sort of started to click from there on in, and the confidence grew. And even playing for Wales in that second year, playing against senior people, was really competitive cricket. I've always said minor counties is a really competitive place to play, because if you play second 11, yes, you come across good players, but they don't necessarily have that desire to win as bad as minor counties players do. And I felt that it was really hard. Like, I've not scored a minor counties 100. So that's something that I've never done, or I can say I've never done. So that's tough. That lives in the head rent free. So, but at the same time, I've always said it to everyone. It is tough going minor counties. You play on some pretty ordinary wickets. It's hard to score, but you get some 1.5 day wins, some 2 day wins in 3 day cricket, which is always nice for the boys who want a bit of time away from home. They enjoy a few cold ones. But yeah, I would say minor counties cricket year 2, it was great to play. I've still played now and then for Wales where I can, when I get the opportunity. A few T20s last year I played. But yeah, I'd say from when I got signed to now, things have moved a long way. I think when I first started, I was obviously stoked to be a professional cricketer in 2019, and to obviously make my debut in 2020, and then to obviously probably played just over 20 professional games now, maybe 30. So hopefully we keep racking them up. That's the goal. But yeah, that's sort of the story, the background there. I don't know if you remember anything to touch upon there. I think
not bad debut either, to be fair.
Well, yeah. I mean, depends what format you're on about. My T20 debut was four-dayer. County
Champ was all right. County Championship debut was okay, just whacking it about. Was it Derbyshire? No, it wasn't Derbyshire.
Northants.
Sorry, yeah. I was like, whacking it about, mate? Getting ready for your T20.
Yeah, that was a surreal day. That was a real fun day. I'd say as well, if my T20 debut, I started really well because my first ball I hit for 4, a reverse sweep for 4, and then after that it kind of went a little bit tits up. I sort of chewed a few balls and then got out. So especially on Sky, I got out in a bad way to Max Waller. Just swiping at one, getting bowled. I was a bit embarrassed.
He loves a celly as well, Max.
Yeah.
He loves a celly. We'll have to get him on at some point, Max, but if you're watching this, mate, you love a celly, mate. And it's all right. It's all right, mate. But mate, getting a gun player out, mate, I would celly as well, mate, to be fair. Mate, I've got a couple, mate, where to start on those points? Gosh. So for me, like in that sense, asking you now, was it always a goal for you, or knowing when you came over to the UK in the they call it over here gap year for the poshies out there?
Yeah.
Is it always a sense of where you know that there was a pathway through to playing professional cricket over here? Because obviously being in the Queensland setup over there, I think, like you said, you can see it a lot with Sam Hain, who probably went through similar and then came over and played for Warwickshire, whereas yourself as well, was there always a pathway to you knowing that, right, cool, I go over, you just never know?
No, I definitely thought about it when I was going over. I thought, wow, this is a good chance to potentially get a foot in the door to county cricket. I did think of that due to my passport and my heritage being Welsh. So that was a thought in my head, but I didn't realise or know anything about the setup or how it worked or anything like that. I literally wouldn't have had a clue going over initially. But it was, after a year or even a couple of months of speaking to people and stuff, it wasn't rocket science to figure it all out. And yeah, I don't think many Australians know how the setup works if they don't know people. I get a lot of questions over there about it here. Likewise, a lot of questions here about the Australian setup. So it's very different. And I think that's what sets both countries apart, I suppose, in that respect.
So what was, I want to put myself in the shoes of 17-year-old Callum, who was about to come over to the UK for a stint in the UK, mate. Was that daunting in a way which might have affected your cricket maybe in the first few months, maybe the first couple of weeks?
No, not at all. I was thinking, give me a county contract on the spot. I was thinking I was going over there and going to straight away play for England. No, I wouldn't have said it was daunting. Obviously, like, I've done a lot of things in my life quite independently. Even though I had family here, still meeting a whole new people in a new club, I think that was kind of exciting and fun to meet new people. I went to Loretto in Scotland on exchange in 2013. So I wasn't a stranger to leaving my comfort zone and playing cricket over here, which I did in Scotland, which I wouldn't say it's exactly the same as playing in the UK, but
No.
similar conditions. I mean, still some okay cricket was played. I wouldn't say great, but some okay cricketers over there.
Yeah.
But in general, I think, I was quite excited. I wasn't really nervous. Wasn't really anything like that. It was just a really big excitement to be able to play over here.
Did having that confidence, like you just mentioned there, help you when you actually started playing for Newport, then maybe minor counties, and then I almost feel like as soon as I'm a bag of nerves, mate, it just goes to absolute shit. So like for me, I don't know. So I always have to have that clear mind, and I almost actually feel that when I ever play my best, I almost don't remember it because it's a case of just got such a clear mind. Is that similar to yourself? Maybe when you came over, maybe even in Oz as well. Actually, was that a case of that's why you were able to get through the levels in the UK?
Well, I think if you put it in a broad perspective, when you play your best cricket is obviously, as you said, when you're clear mind. Like everyone, I think that's the case. Whether it's someone that plays for England or club cricket, when you're just free and clear in your head, you play your best. And it's just about in between that when you don't get to that point, how well do you play there? How consistent can you be if you're not at that point? Because you can still score runs when you're not actually as clear as you want to be. But for me, I'd say the confidence helped. I think when I first came over, I was batting about 7, 8 for Newport, and I definitely wasn't a 7 or 8 batsman in my head, in my mind. And I'd say the guys at Newport would have said, like, if they look in hindsight, I should have been batting 3, 4, 5 even then. And we had a few players at the club, young players they'd been bred through the club, so they were given the opportunity to bat there for a whole season. And while I was just at 7 and 8, just churning out little red inkers and bowling my off spin, so I was like the main spinner at the club, and so that was sort of my role there. I wasn't necessarily massively happy with it, but I enjoyed my cricket. I was enjoying winning games which we did. We won the league that year, and I think my confidence was through the roof with my batting. It's just I didn't really get much of an opportunity other than cup games to showcase. But I think at the last game of the season actually was to win the title at Port Talbot and out west, and they had the confidence in me to bat 4. So I didn't get any runs, but I got a few wickets that game, and we won the game. So ended up winning the league, which was great. But I'd say I always had that confidence throughout. And I think you need it to be able to perform at any level. You need a level of self-belief, especially. And a lot of people will say it's ego or cockiness. Look, take it as it is. I mean, I think to be a professional cricketer, you need to have a level of that, or you won't make it.
I love that because, mate, I'm not going to mention any names, mate, because obviously I'm still want to be involved in Gibraltar cricket. But basically, I've had that a couple of times where when it's not going well, or whether you're changing formats or wherever it may be, and they're immediate to be like, oh, it's just like a confidence thing. You just keep yourself a little bit lower, keep yourself a bit more humble. And then as soon as it goes well, mate, everyone's tapping you in the back saying, just keep it going. That's what we want to see. So how much is it, just to diverge a bit from how much do you have to sieve the outside noise? And I suppose at Glam now, where, you're in the spotlight, where you've been spoken about playing 3 different formats, maybe even 4 if you get into the 100, hopefully, fingers crossed. What is that like? Do you have to sieve it and almost maybe take it with a pinch of salt and be like, look, I know where my game is, and just push on?
Yeah, I think you definitely do need to do that. You need to have that sort of understanding that where you are, where your game is, etc. I know there's, don't get me wrong, I've come across a lot of people already in a short period of time that I feel are quite deluded in the way they think about themselves, but at least they have that sort of that goal, that ambition. The last thing you want is to actually undersell yourself. That could lead, into sort of self-destruction in a way, because if you don't believe you can do something, then you most definitely won't. So
of course,
I think there is a lot of pressure on people, especially young players, to live up to the hype or even to play all formats, etc. But I think you have to be honest with yourself. I think if we look at Bazball right now, there's a lot of players that don't suit that and actually want to go ahead and try play that way to play for England, which is a great way to be. To obviously everyone wants to play for England, but you've got to kind of know your game, and if that's not your game, you got to where you are in a completely different way to someone else. Obviously, Ben Stokes' journey is completely different to my journey, or another person. So you can't necessarily just go out there and blitz it around and expect to change your game all of a sudden, or change the perspective or mentality of yourself. So, look, you've got to keep that level head and that understanding of what you can do, but you also got to keep that self-belief high that you can do anything. So it's keeping that level. It's really hard, but at the end of the day, it's sort of only someone or only yourself can actually find that. And once it works, once it clicks, then I suppose that's when you can sort of keep building upon that.
Is it a sense of is it a sense of having your own little, maybe not superstitions, that's for thinking back to the icebreaker question. Is it about having little tactics and having little theories and what's the right word? Sort of preparations in your own head, even if you don't play? Because I think that's the most frustrating thing, and it's what I've found as well, is when, obviously I'm not a professional cricketer, but it's a similar thing in terms of not playing and maybe going away and not playing, or you're travelling all this way. Obviously county cricket is ridiculously busy. How do you then stay confident and keep that self-belief when you don't play? Because even something like in today's day and age where you've got potentially 4 different formats that you're playing, and you might not realistically, you can't play every game, whether you're youngest or the oldest. You see it now, like Rian Ahmed, who's just come into the England side. Yes, he's played all 3 formats, but they're across a course of time, and they're already talking about workload management. But obviously, as a player, you want to be playing every game, you want to be playing every format. You want to be playing 7 days a week. Well, if you're Marnus, maybe. But how do you deal with the times when maybe you don't play, and how does that confidence stay high?
Yeah, I'm not sure I'll play 7 weeks. I want some time off from cricket for sure. Maybe if you just gave me the bat and said you can bat every day for 7 days, maybe I'd say yes, or even the ball. But I don't know about 7 days in the field consistently. Yeah. Maybe even 7 days with the bat, my head would probably go. But I would say, I think I've just lost the trace there. What was the question?
So so it's basically just asking. So when maybe you do get like sort of left out for for workload reasons, or maybe for an injury and they need to bring in a specific player, maybe you see maybe a lot of it when it's at that block. I think you guys going from like a white ball to a red ball, then back to a white ball. When the 100 starts, and you could be not playing, and then you're playing, and then you're not playing again, just because of other reasons out of your control. Do you have those routines and those certain maybe strategies, that's what I was looking for, to keep that confidence and that self-belief high?
Yeah, I think you can break it up into 2 aspects. Obviously, the one where you actually don't have much control over it, where you are going from different format, or even having a week off, etc. And then obviously the other part is probably if you don't get selected, how do you stay on top of that? But I'd say on the first one, I'm a big believer in, I like changing up the formats. I like it when it does move to, you might play some one-day cricket, some red ball, or even the T20 to red ball, back to T20 sort of thing sometimes in the calendar. But I do enjoy that, but I'm really bad at it. I'm really bad at doing it. But I like the change up, because when you play a format for a long period of time, you get really, really, you just get drowned in it, and it really just, it consumes you in a way. And I found that really tough, especially a couple of years ago. We played all 14 T20s, I think, and just ate me up. Just T20, 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 and the same with red ball. Once you play red ball, you may lose form, and as soon as you lose form, the next game comes quicker. You don't do well again, and then it's just literally you're in a spiral all the way down. And I do like the change of setup, and I think players' strategies are always different towards that. I always do better when it goes from red ball to white ball. I find it really hard going from white ball to red ball. I usually need a little bit of time to adjust. That's me needing to get probably more self-aware with how I can do that and the routines, as you said, and strategies you can put in place. But for me, I keep it really simple going into white ball, because I know if my setup's nice and good and I'm balanced, head still, which you always want to be, then I can actually perform really well in white ball while playing, going from red ball to white ball. And
what a
yeah,
sorry, Karen, bro. Karen, no, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say,
I
was just going to finish and say that, like, it's difficult for me probably going the other way around, because then when you get into that white ball block, I probably get a bit expansive and I do a lot of things. You suddenly start to try, other things. You're not as still, you're moving a little bit more. And that's sort of where then I forget, like my brain sort of forgets where I was before red ball was, because I'm quite a field player where I need to have that sort of like feel to my game where, okay, this is what I was doing. Okay, I need that repetition now, and that's where I am. But sometimes I do stray away from that. And I've got to learn myself to get better at that.
How do you adapt it then based on maybe coaches or other players? Because obviously there's 10 other players that play a cricket game with you, and those 10 players might prepare completely differently. And obviously that's obviously big up to the coaching staff at Glam or Glamorgan, if anyone doesn't know what that means, where, they're there for everyone and everyone's prep is different. I don't know, someone who we've had on like Dan or Kieran before may have, I don't know, maybe only to hit 5 balls, whereas you may need to hit 150 balls a day before a game, or warm up differently on the day of a game. And maybe even vice versa. If you look at someone like Dan, who's very, very expansive with his shots, and maybe someone like Kieran, or maybe like even completely different to yourself, how much do you have to be like, oh, look, he's in form and he's playing a certain way, whereas maybe, or vice versa, like I need to actually like look at him, what can I change? Or is it all about, not all about yourself? That sounds really bad. Is it all about sort of keeping yourself to yourself in a certain way?
No, but I think it is all about yourself, because it's your career, it's your game.
Yeah.
You need to be able to prepare your way, and when you prepare your way and you do well, that's only going to benefit the team. So I think for anyone, there's a lot of coaches out there that have their opinions on what you should do, and like they're not right. Like it's not necessarily right. You need to find that out for yourself. People can guide you in that way and put you in a direction if you're not sure, or you can just look at other players. And I've tried so many things already, and I'm starting now, 5 years in, to really understand what is working for me. And look, it may be a year of playing ordinary where I go, I need to change. So that happens, and people change all the time. So it's just about finding a formula for you that seems to work. For T20s this year, I'm now going to adopt, I'm not even going to have flings or throws before the game. I'm basically only going to do that the days before leading up to the game. On the day, I'm just going to have underarms, overarms, full tosses into a net. And that's sort of what I'm going to do to go about it. Every time I've done that, I've done well. I'm not overthinking the game. I'm just hitting a ball that comes at me to feel the middle of the bat. And that's as simple as it is. I'm trying to feel good before the game.
Love that. And
for red ball, for me, it's as simple as overarm throws. If we have really good turf nets, or even indoors or artificial, I'll have a hit on that. It's purely feel goods for me before games. I don't want any sort of self-doubt or that belief that I can't play or I'm not playing at my best. I don't want that. I want to be just completely sure that I'm going to go out there and be able to time it and play at my best. A lot of boys want testing nets. A lot of lads want to be tested in their net so that they know they go out there, it'll probably be easier. And that's purely people's preferences. As I said before, I'm a field player, so I need to be able to, I don't always net well. So if someone's flinging to me, everything's confined space. It feels really quick. It feels like it's doing a lot more than it actually is. I do struggle a lot. I have some great nets, but I also have some really poor nets compared to some people. I'm not a very good net batter, but when I play in the middle, I'm completely different. I'm more switched on. I'm able to block it out. Everything feels slower. I'm able to breathe, and like it's just the way it is. And I've come to that realization that even coaches will say to me now, like, if I have a crap net, it's just basically a case of, oh, well, whatever. Like, we know Cal isn't he's not a great net batter. He's not going to be the best net batter. Like, it's just reality of it. Some people aren't. And I think once you come to that understanding, then you can sort of go from there. Because some of the boys, yeah, as I said, they just love netting and love it. And I just know if I have too much of it, I just feel so bad about myself. I had a terrible net in Zimbabwe just gone, the last Red Bull net. And I said to one of the boys after, I was like, I forgot how to play cricket. I forgot how to bat. I feel like my brain's doing one thing, my hands are doing another, my feet are moving in a different way. And I was like, all I need is an indoor school and a few underarms. Just make me feel better about my movements.
Yeah. How do you deal with the nets or the games that then don't go too great? Because, oh, mate, when I was younger, I used to be like a little trigger-happy Ben Stokes, mate, chucking my kit around. Well, I still do to a certain extent. Sometimes depends how I get out. It depends how the game goes. But yeah, I used to always, I'm so upset, you know, F this, F that, don't talk to me. But, and yes, obviously it happens sometimes. But I think now, again, I play my best the next game when I'm almost just like, it happens, just on to the next one. Is that something that you adopt, or is it something a bit more, I spoke to Sonny Baker from Somerset, who's just like, oh, I'll analyze it for the first half an hour, like after the game or when I get home, and then I've parked it, and then on to the next one. How much do you, even if it's a bad game, is it a case of analyzing, or even the good ones? Because obviously you don't want to get too overhyped, being like, oh, I am the next, I don't know, Don Bradman, I'm the next, whoever it is. And then park it. Is it a sense of treating both the good and the bad the same in a certain way?
Yeah, I think the thing I always go back to, I keep harping on about it, is like you've got to find what works for yourself, and that's in anything in life. I think once you get that sort of gauge for it, then you can sort of expand on it there. But for me, I love to look at actually when I do well to actually give me confidence. I always look back at the best innings or the best shots I played all year and go, okay, look, just do that. You can do it. It's as simple as that. And when I have battings and I don't feel great, then yeah, I may analyze a little bit or maybe dismissals. I never go into depth that much about ball after ball. Did I get my head there? Blah, blah, blah. Because if you do that, I know a lot of players do that, but I feel like if I do that, I'm just going to overthink it when it's just purely instinct out there. Like you may play a ball badly and you go, okay, you park that and go, I played it badly. You know what I mean? You may play and miss a ball on sixth stump, which you shouldn't be even trying to hit. And you just know straight away, just leave it. Like it's as simple as that. It's not a technical thing. It's just an error in your head. And I think a lot of people try to overcomplicate things a lot and really overanalyze things. And I try to keep it as simple as possible. I look at a lot more of my good things than I look at my bad things, purely because I want to actually dig myself up, build that confidence in me, and just say, look, go again. Like you can do it. And especially when I do well, like if I get 150 or 100, I'll always just look at that inning. And more likely, I'll look at most of the balls in those innings than I do the ones where I get a 20 ball 5 or something like that. So, yeah.
How then do you, but I suppose it's, I don't do psychology, but it's a sense of, I think, like not overachieving, sort of maybe sort of going over the edge, I suppose, in terms of confidence, where it's a stage where, if maybe you're going through a bad run of form, it may hinder you just as much as like what I just mentioned. So is it a case for you as well that you do need to maybe do a little bit of like maybe technical work at some, obviously the season's difficult because obviously it's so many games, mate. It's obviously ridiculous. How do you have to look at the bad points? Again, I'm helping on about now. Is it a case of maybe I'm getting out a certain way this many times, footage is everywhere nowadays where every game's recorded, every analyst is on to each person about how they can get a certain batter out. Do you have to maybe look at that sometimes when it maybe is something consistent, do you reckon?
Yeah, no, 100%. I think that's where you can lean on your coaches and you should be able to. I actually, now you mention it, like I did go through a lean patch. Like, it was actually the very start of last year. Granted, it was in April, the ball was doing a bit, but I was actually had a technical issue for the first three games of last season, which actually cost me my spot in the team, which I never actually retained, which if I look in hindsight and I'd fixed that quicker, then potentially could have been playing in that team for a bit longer and then potentially for the whole year. So if I look back on that, that was a case of me being too low at the crease, falling over, and I just wasn't still. And it took me probably, I asked in week 2, I thought I was too low, and I got told maybe I'm not. So I kept doing what I was doing. And it was too late, when I got dropped, one of the coaches in the second team told me that I was too low. My head was falling over. I wasn't still. And then it took another week after that. I had one of my worst innings in second team, literally straight after I got dropped. I just had no feel to my game. But after that, it was 1 week playing bad. And then I was literally back to my sparkling best the week after, because I literally focused on something for the whole week, knew what to do, got that confidence back in the nets, went out there in a game and performed. And as soon as I performed, what I'm really good at is once I perform once in a game, get that confidence, I'm pretty consistent. But like anyone, when they're out of form, it's very hard to scratch away to get a score. Yeah. But once you get that score, it kind of builds for me, which is really, I suppose, a good trait of mine, but also maybe that's just in my cricketing sort of nature rather than actually inside of me.
Does it take time to build that mindset then about that? Because again, a lot of the time, or maybe for a younger player, a spell of a couple of games, like you mentioned, unfortunately, it might lose your spot. Whereas maybe for a younger player, it might not mean getting a contract, or it might not mean getting the bump up from under 17s to under 19s, or from the academy to the second team. So do you think that takes time to develop? And again, do you reckon again, maybe not time as well, but it takes games and being able to play in those games, because everyone says that they're brilliant off the field in terms of maybe how they deal with it, but in terms of actually how they deal with it in a practical sense is very different.
Yeah, I think it's also self-awareness of the team, the coaches that you play for or with, that they got to understand their players and how they operate in form, out of form, etc. Because if, last year I didn't get another opportunity to play first team cricket, which I would have loved to, but it felt a little bit like once I didn't play, I never thought I wasn't going to get back in the team. But that was obviously the case. And I felt maybe if there was more awareness around actually when I get in form, I stay in form, and that's when you got to pick me, which I did pretty much a week after that game, that second team game, and I got dropped. That then on in for the rest of the year, I was basically in the form of my life, playing club cricket every weekend, scoring 1,000 runs there, taking wickets for fun, and then even the second 11 doing the same. For me, it's when I'm in form, I'm very consistent, and I feel like it's different for players. Some players can go 100, duck, 100, duck, 100, duck, and look, it works for them because they're averaging 50 or whatever. But once I start failing, I keep failing. But I also have that belief, though. I wouldn't say actually I keep failing, especially if I feel good about my game. I do have that belief if I have 1 or 2 scores when I feel good, that I got told this when I was actually at Newport by Mike Knight, one of the Newport coaches. He said to me that when he played and he got a bad score, he would actually be like, okay, if he got another bad score, he'd be like, right, that's a good thing, because he knows he's good enough that he won't get another one. Like, he won't consistently do that because he knew how good he was, that there was a big one around the corner. I've always believed in people are due as well. You're due some runs, or even the other way around. You're due a low score. So if someone's in the form of his life, or they keep scoring runs, you can't keep scoring runs. It just doesn't happen. Like, the cricket will get you. At some point, the cricket gods will go, it's enough. Time's done. You've got too many runs. Here's your low score. So, yeah.
What's your then mindset when it is at, I suppose, when maybe maybe last year's a good example, where you get dropped from the first team, and then it's a case of either consistently doing okay, but then others are actually doing at that first team level, and they're not changing the team round. Same 11, we put the same 11 out again, because why would you change a winning formula? Which has happened a couple of times for Glam, which is awesome. How do you then deal with that instance? Because you can't do any more, other people can't do any more. How do you keep that motivation high in that specific scenario? Because that might be similar to a case of like, what else can I do now? I can't get back in the team, because they're doing well. How do you deal with that?
I think you pray and hope that someone wants you on loan, but it's not very. It doesn't really happen anymore for batters these days. I think it's more of a bowlers thing when people get injured, etc. It's rare that batters go on loan unless you're probably quite a veteran player. But yeah, I mean, it is difficult because that's what happened to me for the whole season. I think teams get sucked in a lot to the idea of that if you win, don't change the team, which I am a complete opposite. I think if you win, you got to think, how can we have done better? How can we implement something that actually would have made us perform better? And look, I may not have been the person that could have done better or blah, blah, blah. But if you do have someone that's a lack of form, I don't think you can actually say that's the case. Like, you can't, like, you know what I mean? Like, if you lose a game and you suddenly change the team, it could be a rash decision just to change the team. But if you win and you don't change the team after someone's losing form and someone else is doing good, then you may be in a little sticky space because everyone, like, let's be quite honest, everyone that's playing first team cricket, they're good enough to be there. And if you give someone out of form the opportunity or even to come good, they're going to come good. Whereas you may miss the opportunity to get someone in before that happens to continually go well. But in saying that, it is good to have that sort of belief that if you win, you may stay in the team. It's great to have, but in essence, you are a squad of players playing for the same goal. So when people get really down about not playing, etc., I think it's the job of the squad to get around them and perform for them just as much as it is for anyone else, really.
That's awesome, mate. That's awesome. So I've got a couple of points here, which we've spoken a little bit about them already, but a couple of points I wanted to hit. I think every sportsman, if they went through their career and said, or woman as well, who said that they haven't experienced some low moments or like dark moments in terms of maybe their career outside of that is tough. Have there been any for you which spring to mind, which almost made you a better cricketer when you come out of those harder times?
Yeah, I had a pretty stiff time of it in 2021. No, 2021. 2 years ago, 2 seasons ago, I had a pretty stiff time of it where I played some really good cricket for the first probably half of the year. I played some really good cricket. Ended up losing my place in the team due to my bowling, not to my batting, because that was going quite well. And from the rest of the year, I felt I hadn't gone back to Australia. I hadn't, because of COVID, I didn't go back home, and I felt probably pretty homesick. So I think everything was adding up on me there and sort of weighing on me, and I kind of felt that sort of the weight of the world on my shoulders, and I think it was just dragging me down. I think a low point for me that year was a great high point for the club, and well, in a way, if I look back on it now, it obviously is for me as well, but it was a low point of me not playing the One Day Cup final, or not even being involved because I was actually ill. I was in my hotel room, sick as anything, wasn't able to even be there. Whether I was going to play or run drinks, wasn't there to cheer on everyone and even just celebrate the win after playing half the 3/4 of the games in the group stages and stuff. It was quite demoralizing to have to basically walk to a COVID centre that was about 2 kilometres away from the hotel in Nottingham and on my own, and realise that I'm not going to be part of the day there. That was quite a low point for me, considering that's the only trophy the club's won in a while. And potentially, well, I'm not going to say that because I have all the belief in the world that we will win another one. But, the way cricket and sport works, it doesn't guarantee that you're going to consistently win trophies. So, that was a low point for me that kind of like topped it off for the year, which was quite a demoralizing year in a way. But then I went back to Australia, gained all my confidence, and I went back at it last year, and once again, last year was a hard year as well because I only played 3 games at the very start of the year, and yeah, I lost a lot of confidence and then gained it all back by playing some really good cricket in second team. So yeah, I mean, it's part and parcel of that cricket. I think you're going to go through your low points, going to go through your high points. It's a bit disappointing that I've had one of my highest points already in cricket, followed by then after that 2 low points. You kind of want to go high point, low point, high point, low point, something along those lines. We'll just continue high points. That'd be great.
Yeah.
But it doesn't always work like that. But yeah,
that'd be brilliant, wouldn't it?
if you're looking at trends, it looks like there could be a high point this year, hopefully.
That's good. Fingers crossed, mate. Fingers crossed. No, and I'm sure that there definitely will, mate. So there's a couple of last minute questions that I wanted to ask. And obviously we do questions from the public section, but because it's obviously quite last minute, and I wanted to make sure that we got this done. Because, mate, this has been an unbelievable chat so far, mate. It's been 47 minutes, mate. It's felt like, honestly, like it's gone by like this. So, so in terms of the question from the public section, it's not been done. But in terms of one that I had from Ellie Threadkild's podcast, obviously, she's not just retired, bless her. For Lancashire and obviously Manchester Originals wicketkeeper, that had a couple which I didn't actually answer. So, from your point of view, are there any sort of routines that you use whilst you're batting to focus on the next ball? And I spoke to that person, and they kind of said that it was mainly from Justin Langer in the test saying Adam Gilchrist who says the most important thing in your life is the next ball.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Gilly made that. Like, I like to zone out before each ball. I like to look at the scoreboard, analyze what's on there. I always, when I'm playing grade cricket in Australia, when there's not much of a scoreboard, there's like them flicky ones. I say to the boys every over, change the scoreboard when I bat. It's great in county cricket and in some second 11 grounds where you actually have electronic scoreboards to be able to analyze all that. Because I just like when I zone out, I just take in account of everything going on. Sometimes look in the crowd, just suss out people in the crowd just to zone out. But yeah, I have that quick moment to myself where I'm just blank, and then bang, zone back in, take guard, go through your routine as you are. My routine is basically as simple as looking where I'm standing. If I have an idea in my head, making sure that there's no second thoughts about that, whether it's in T20 cricket or where you're a bit more premeditation, running at the bowler, ramping or walking across your stumps, etc. You obviously can do that in red ball cricket. Some people do, as seen in Test cricket these days. But yeah, I think you have that focus there. Bang, you've got that idea in your head. A lot of people, it comes spur of the moment kind of things. But for me, it's mostly I'm a very calculated player. I think about the game a lot and what I want to do. But yeah, it's a case of looking at my stance, making sure I'm ready to go, and then zone back in.
Awesome, mate. Awesome. What an insight that is. So the second question that we've got was a bit of a different one, but it's one that is actually quite interesting. So how far do you look ahead in terms of during and maybe even before the season? Is it a month at a time or is it a game at a time? I actually quite love that. That's a great question, actually, to be fair.
Yeah, I think certain players like to target games. But for me, it's, I rarely know our fixtures. Unless I'm really excited to play at a certain ground or know where I'm going to be in a certain day, I'll look at the schedule. But usually I'm a bit like, who are we playing in 2 weeks' time? So I think a lot of people like to know where they're going to be or blah, blah, blah. Sometimes I do that, but usually I'm just focusing on the next game and then analysing the players I come against. Because if you start going, we get Jimmy Anderson in 3 weeks' time, then you go, well, what about the game coming up where you've got Matt Potts or Rushworth or you know what I mean? So I think for me it's a case of just like take every game as it comes, analyse that game, and then just move on, because you may gain extra confidence for that, and that bowler in a week's time that you'll make or 2 weeks' time that you're worrying about irrelevant because you're on top of the world. So because everyone's human, anyone can take anyone apart in county cricket, I believe. So yeah, I mean, it is a great question, because I feel like it may change depending on how you're feeling at the time. I think I've overvalued people at times where I face them and I actually go, oh, I find this quite easy. And then I may do the opposite. I may completely undervalue someone and not take any notice of them, and they end up getting me out. So I think it's part and parcel of cricket again, and you've got to sort of understand what works for you in terms of preparation for a game. But yeah, it's for me, it's literally game by game. Don't look ahead. If I'm as clueless, I'm not really that clueless all the time, but if I'm clueless to realize on the day, oh, we're playing this team, then yeah, maybe I shouldn't be a county cricketer. But I've never come across that, but I have had a case of not knowing who we're playing against the week after. So
yeah,
but I mean, that's a single game focus. So
yeah, that's what I was going to say. I think I would used to be like that, and it was a case of, I'm focusing on next year or wherever it is, and then I'm just like, well, yeah, in the moment's quite a good idea, because then when it rolls up quickly, you're like, oh, I wasn't ready for this. So I think it's like that's how I kind of take it, which is very similar to what you just said, which is awesome.
The county championship, they love to big games up, especially when we got Marnus in our team. They've already bigged the game up. I think Marnus versus Smith.
And Smithy, yeah.
They've already bigged that game up. So, I mean, that's
halfway through the season. You're just like, we still got half the season.
Exactly. I'm like, when even is that going to be played? Like, I don't even know. And I don't even really care, because, like, who knows what can happen from then.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, county championship love doing it. Glamorgan love doing it. Like, social media teams love bigging up certain contests and stuff like that. They did that last year with us with Marnus and Shaheen Afridi. I think Shaheen's got Marnus's number comfortably, but yeah, I think social media does it as better than anyone. So I don't think you need the added pressure on yourself. So yeah.
Fair enough, mate. That's awesomely answered, mate. Mate, we're going to go into the closing note, because I could generally be here for about 17 hours. So one or number of people who have influenced you in your career, maybe your life thus far. Obviously, I'm not saying that Cal is 2 years away from being retired, but who has influenced you, mate, so far? Maybe like a cricketing one, or maybe it might never be cricket in general.
I think my dad and granddad, definitely. But if I go more cricket perspective, probably coaches. One of my coaches in Australia, Stephen Baker from TSS, and Ross Wallace, both from the Southwest School, sort of taught me how to go about my business and sort of how to win. They taught me how to be a winner, pretty much, which during my junior sort of days playing cricket on the Gold Coast, the teams that I was a part of, we won everything. And I would say that's down to them putting that into me. They weren't our coaches for all of the cricket, but they were for a majority. And I would say that was a big part to them sort of teaching us how to win, how to go about our business, how to sort of play to our strengths. And I think that's what stuck to me to this day, to sort of make sure I do my things well. And if I do my things well, it'll probably spur the team on, or someone else below me or younger than me, to actually do the same, to win the game for the team. So that's sort of what I took from playing cricket quite young, was that sort of mentality of, if I do my job really well, it'll spur someone else on to also do the job. Whether that's a game played 2 weeks before, but that maybe younger person or just someone in the team without confidence sees that, and then you can sort of watch and sort of gain that confidence from there. But for me, those two guys have been, they were really great for me growing up. And I'd say now, if I have a lot of role models in cricket, you go through the eras. I think my first bat was a Ricky Ponting graphite bat. And so, Ponting was obviously a great one, but he was obviously coming to the end when I was sort of really ramping up my cricket. And people like Michael Clark, obviously Steve Smith, the man who basically taught everyone you can stand wherever you want. You can do whatever you want. You can be as weird as you want on the cricket ground. So I think there's a lot of role models, most of them Australian cricketers. I only really recently started looking into more English players when I started playing over here, to be honest. I didn't know much about county cricket when I was in Australia. But obviously you can't go talk about cricket sometimes, or or even all formats cricket without talking about someone like AB de Villiers. So
Yeah,
I'll probably have to
definitely.
say him and Joss Butler were the two ones that I would mimic the most in the backyard, in terms of everything, because it'd just be fun to be them.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it? It'd just be absolutely amazing. So yeah, I'd say on a cricket perspective them. But if I look back on my whole life, I'd say my dad and granddad. Just dad played professional rugby, so yeah, I'd say probably those two great role models for me. But in terms of the way that my cricket was brought up, most of those two coaches from a younger age.
Man, that's brilliant. What an insight that is. So final note, mate, final notes. One piece of advice that you have for anyone who wants to be the next Callum Taylor, or anyone who wants to be the next professional cricketer, whether it be in England, Australia, or anyone who wants to improve their cricket, or anyone who just wants to be a better person, mate. Over to you.
Yeah, look, I would just probably say just have that self-belief, that confidence. I think it's really important that you know who you are. You stay true to yourself as a person. And, I've had people tell me in the past, you're not good enough. A lot of people don't believe in me or didn't believe in me. Maybe now do, maybe still don't. And in my mind, I don't care. And I think everyone should have that sort of mentality in life where you sort of park what people think and sort of start having that self-affirmation and that self-belief in yourself to, that positive chat just to say, look, you can do whatever you want in the world, really, you can. And it's about you having that belief to do it. And I seriously believe that if you have that confidence in yourself, you can do anything, because people have come from a lot worse odds than me and played cricket for their country or even their state, county or province or whatever. So, and they didn't do that from just luck. They did that from pure hard work and belief in themselves. So that's probably my last point.
That's awesome, mate. What a way to finish that is. That's also an awesome piece of advice, and definitely one that you should take forward into your game or just in general, to be fair. So, Cal, just mate, honestly, I want to thank you so much for your openness and mate, your awesome ability to answer all these points, mate. So thank you so much for coming on, mate. I really, really appreciate it, mate. Thank you so much.
No, thank you for having me. Cheers. Appreciate it.
No worries. For the second time, ladies and gents, as well, by the way. You wait out. Yeah. For the third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh. No, hopefully not. But no, obviously I'll leave all of Cal's links in the description below, guys. Show him some love. And obviously wish him the best of luck for the upcoming season, which starts very, very soon. So thank you very, very much.
Cheers. Appreciate it, mate.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening to that episode of the Fitzness Podcast with Callum Taylor. I'm actually going to be honest, and I'm recording this a day after, just because I've reflected on it, and just I'm gobsmacked how much of an unbelievable sort of mindset that Callum has in terms of, yes, he's in a position, unfortunately, where he lost his space in the team last year, but the mindset that someone like that has to keep working, going away, playing some cricket, to an unbelievably high standard as well in Australia, and then coming back and still wanting to fight. It kind of reminds me a lot about sort of when I sort of was out of the Gibraltar team and then fighting my way to get back in it, and I look up to Cal so much just because of that, and I just cannot thank him enough for his openness, his honesty, his true passion to answering every single question or every point that I asked him. Didn't hold back at all, and I think it gave you guys an incredible insight into what it's like as a professional cricketer or professional athlete in general. It's not always going to go perfect. For the very, very best in the world, it's going to go wrong sometimes as well. And he was very open with that and very honest with it. Thinking back to, I didn't realize that he had gone through such a tough time of it, being sick during the One Day Cup final when Glamorgan managed to win it. So yeah, it's an incredibly difficult thing to speak about, I imagine, and he did it without a question asked. So thank you so much, Cal, if you're listening, mate, for your honesty. Please do, guys, show him some love in the description box below, because he definitely earns it. And we wish him nothing but the best for the season up and coming. And hopefully, fingers crossed, we see some of that, all that hard work pay off during the summer, and I'm sure we will. So thank you guys as well for also listening to another episode of the Fitzness Podcast. The support we've been getting again is just, it blows my mind. Obviously, there's going to be some podcasts which don't do as well, and there's going to be podcasts which do. And I understand that I've got to be patient in that sense. I'm no Joe Rogan or just yet. But it's just unbelievable to have some of the support I've been getting, even if it's private messages which people don't see. And it really, really does make me know that what we're doing here is making a difference. And even if it helps one person, then boom, I'm happy. So again, yeah, thank you so much for the support, guys. Stay tuned for another episode of the Fitzness Podcast next Wednesday at 6 p.m. Take care.